Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll hear music from Aaron Tingham and the Tangents. But first, joining me now is Maureen Kelly Jonason, the Executive Director of the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County. Maureen, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
As we get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and maybe your background, maybe where you're originally from.
Oh, well, I'm born in Fargo, actually born in Moorhead at St. Ansgar's. Grew up in Harvey, North Dakota for 9 years of my childhood and then came back here in the 70s. So I'm a Fargo, North Dakota gal all my life, basically. I do have, little things. I have a PhD in higher education teaching and learning. I taught college writing and humanities for 20 years and then came to the museum in 2008.
Well, I was going to say how long, but you just answered that. They can do the math, I guess. Well, we're here today, obviously, to talk about your organization and the upcoming events for this year. But let's first start. Tell us a little bit about the history of the organization.
You know, my collections manager, Lisa Vita, said once that the history of the Yumcomb Center is a history of constant change. And it's really true. The Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County is the resulting organization of the merger between Clay County Historical Society and Heritage Yumcomb Interpretive Center, which is the organization that used to run the museum at the Yumcomb Center. Those two merged in 2009. I shepherded through the merger and then was hired as the executive director. Before that, the Red River Heritage Society was really the dominant group in getting the Yumcomb Center built. Once they added the Viking ship to the picture, it became a community favorite and got a lot of support. So originally, we were supposed to build a Red River Heritage Center every few communities along the Red all the way up to Winnipeg. But once they got done with the Moorhead Center, everybody collapsed and it just, that idea went away. So,
yeah. Well, the Yumcomb Center you mentioned here, closely affiliated, obviously. Can you tell folks what they would see if they came to the Yumcomb Center?
Oh, well, of course, the City of Moorhead owns the Yumcomb Center, has owned it since 1998. When they took that over, they doubled the size, so there's an auditorium and meeting rooms. The senior center's there. There's a kitchen, park department offices are there, that sort of thing. But on our half of the building, which is the museum, we have constantly changing exhibits. It happens that this summer of 2022, we have the Idaho Manapee Clay County at 150 exhibit. That's going to be up through December of 2023. We have Debajamoan, which is a wonderful exhibit of vintage portraits of Native Americans that have been digitally colorized by Katie Ferris. We have stories of local Black history, which is often a surprise to people that we had a very active Black community at one time and have a resurgence today. And then we're just finishing up with Thrift Style, which is a traveling exhibit on how people used to make clothing out of feed sack fabrics. So we're getting a new exhibit in the middle of June that's going to be up through most of October called Savages and Princesses, the persistence of Native American stereotypes. That's really going to be very interesting to the public, I think.
Yeah, well, with all that said, you kind of went over them real quick. Maybe we could go back and talk about them just a little bit more. That Clay County at 150?
Right.
What does that entail?
2022 marks the 150th anniversary of the actual legal formation of Clay County, Minnesota. So in 1872, a lot was going on in this community. The railroad had just come in. Moorhead was born. There was a lot of saloon activity, a lot of disorder, if you will. And so they had to form a county government fairly quickly in response to the illegal activities going on. And so, Comstock was the first county attorney. There was a county sheriff appointed, and pretty soon they had law and order in hand. And so we are celebrating that period of transition from the dominant Native American tribes, which were the Anishinaabe and the Dakota, going into white settlement, and then the establishment of law and order.
All right, it sounds interesting. COVID-19 in Moorhead, a community history project. What will people see there if they come?
We have an online portal linked to our website where you can register your stories. We definitely want everyone's story that we can have. We've had doctors provide information, we've had poets, we've had all kinds of people willing to share their little part of the story. We are literally making history right now with COVID, and we've collected things like PPP and masks and the hearts that were in windows, and we took a lot of photos throughout the county. But it's the stories that are going to be told 100 years from now. When people of 100 years from now look back, they're going to want to know what were the people actually going through, and we can only do that through personal stories.
And you mentioned local Black history. What do you have there for an exhibit?
We have a wonderful exhibit that goes down the hallway down in the 3rd floor, and it profiles African American citizens of Fargo-Moorhead in the late 1800s to the present. We did some research in a newspaper called The Appeal, which was a St. Paul-based newspaper run by African Americans, and they would publish columns from cities all over the country, and they had a regular Fargo-Moorhead column where we learned a great deal about the local community's Black elite families, the family of Felix Battles, who was a Civil War soldier who became a very famous barber here in town, so famous that his obituary appeared in a white newspaper. That's pretty big. And so we did the research and discovered who some of the big families were, did genealogy on those families, made some connections even to people still living today. And then brought the story forward with what is really a resurgence of people of African descent who have come to resettle in Fargo-Moorhead and in Clay County today, including our short-termed Mayor Jonathan Judd, who was the first African American mayor ever elected in Moorhead. So,
okay. Obviously, as we're taping this interview, June 19th already passed. But what kind of activities did you have for Juneteenth?
Juneteenth, we were at a booth downtown at the Renaissance Hall Plaza. And we also had some speakers come in on June 21st to talk about really the history of Juneteenth in Minnesota. It's actually been going on for over 30 years and has a long history. Our community has only kind of just gotten started working with Juneteenth. The exhibit is going to be up through October 9th of 2022, and so I think a lot of people are going to get a chance to see it, and we're hoping to have Juneteenth be a part of our regular programming every year now.
Okay. Well, with all that and with everything you've told us about up to now, how many employees do you have to make all this happen?
We have 8 full-time employees and a half-time position in the administrative assistant position, but most of them are historians in some form or another, and they wear many hats, do many things, and are busy every single minute. We were really thrilled that everyone was full-time employed during COVID, and that's important because we do a lot of our planning, research, and writing years in advance of the exhibits actually coming to fruition.
Yeah, you say that during COVID. So how long were y'all shut down during COVID?
We had to be shut down by the governor of Minnesota order for 20 weeks, a period from March to June of 2020, and then again in November until February of 2021. So it was a lot of time to be away. We had a really robust summer 2021. People came back in droves, and we're expecting another really great summer season this year.
And with that said, shut down for those weeks, how are you funded?
We were fortunate in that we got a lot of state, local, and even federal funding. We, of course, had the PPP loans that were forgiven that helped keep us employed. Clay County had a CARES Act fund. City of Moorhead had funds, and then the state of Minnesota has also been very generous in terms of the Minnesota State Arts Board gave us several general operating grants for our arts programming, and the Minnesota Humanities Commission has funded our history-oriented programming.
Yeah, but you're talking about that sort of during COVID, I think. But then throughout normal years, you depend a little bit on admissions, don't you?
We do. Admissions are a big part of our exhibit, which is why being closed for 20 weeks was really devastating financially for us. We have diverse revenue streams in that we have admissions, we have gift shop revenue, donations, memberships. We have a very generous membership and donor base. And I write a lot of grants. I love writing grants, and so I keep those projects fully funded as we go through each year.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even mentioned it, but can you talk about the history of the Viking ship and how it's cared for?
The Hjemkomst. The Hjemkomst was built in the 70s by Robert Asp, who was a Moorhead Moorhead school counselor. He just became really enamored with the Viking history and thought, wouldn't it be fun to build a Viking ship? Well, everybody thought he was crazy. It ended up taking 7 years. He became ill with leukemia, which a lot of people don't know. But he was able to see the ship sail in Duluth Harbor in August of 1980 before passing away in December of 1980. And then 2 years later, his family made sure that they sailed it to Norway. And there were 4 Asp children on the voyage during the whole thing. So they pretty much made history, made People magazine even published it, but they were in newspapers all over the world. We have scrapbooks galore on all the coverage worldwide. So this year is the 40th anniversary of the voyage, and to celebrate, we are having a brand new, exciting exhibit that's opening July 23rd, 2022, and it's going to be up for the next 10 years, so people will have a great opportunity to see it and enjoy really hearing the old stories in a new way.
But I got a little follow-up there. How's it cared for? How's it taken care of?
We work in partnership with the city. We're actually under a professional service agreement with the city of Moorhead. The city owns the building, and they also own the ship and the church. That's their assets, but they don't want to run a museum. So we take care of the ship and the church. We measure the cracks, and we maintain the humidity, or we measure the humidity and temperature levels. We provide the interpretation by having guided tours, creating the videos, working with visitors, taking people out to the Stav Church, all of those services in exchange for our rent, in exchange for storage and office and janitorial services and utilities. So.
Yeah. You just mentioned the Stav Church. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe how that came about, I guess, with Guy Paulson?
You bet. Guy Paulson, who's still alive and well today, decided he wanted to build a Stav Church. He chose the Hopperstad, which is still in existence in Vik, Norway. And there are 28 wooden churches of the Scandinavian tradition still in Norway from the Middle Ages, and he chose the Hopperstad because it's closest to his own family's homeland. And that was built in 1998. It took about 5 years to do all the carving inside and outside of the church, and people absolutely love it. You can only see it with a guide. We don't let people just wander in and out. So. It's also used for weddings in the summertime, and we occasionally have some great concerts because it has fabulous acoustics for voice and violin.
Okay. Will the Vikings Days Festival take place this summer?
You know what? The Nordic Culture Clubs is the organization that does the indoor festival, while we did the Midwest Viking Festival. And due to changes in the building when the FMCT came in, the space was made smaller for the festivals, and so Nordic Culture Clubs chose to find a different location for the festival this year, and they informed us that they were no longer interested in being partners. Without having admissions revenue, we would not be able to sustain the festival. It's very expensive. So the Midwest Viking Festival is no more here in our community. We have Viking Connections, which is a grant-funded project. Tim Jorgensen is going to take the festival to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where there's a vibrant Viking community.
Now, you just mentioned FMCT. moved into the building. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, interestingly, in February of 2021, one of my staff said, someone from FMCT was just in taking a look at the Heritage Hall, our 7,000 square foot exhibit gallery. They're thinking of putting the theater in here, and that was the first that I ever heard of this possibility. Called and talked to Dan Molly. He told me it was in the infancy. It was just an idea they were running through, but by the end of March, it was a done deal. And so we did give up our 7,000 square foot exhibit space that we've had since 1986, and we moved our exhibits downstairs. We lost the equivalent of one gallery, and of course, the big events there, the festivals, have to be tapered back quite a bit to make room for FMCT having 2 stages.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure. Talk about maybe in the upcoming year or years, what exhibits or events are you looking at having and doing?
Well, our biggie this summer is going to be the grand opening of the new Ship Gallery exhibit and the new church exhibit, and that's going to be July 23rd. We will continue to have Pangea, Cultivate Our Cultures, which is our annual multicultural festival. It's really the only event in town that celebrates all the different cultures that make up our community. And that's going to be November 19th this year, Saturday, November 19th. So we're excited about that going in person once again. It's been via Zoom the last 2 years.
Sure, a lot of things have.
Yeah.
Why is Scandinavian culture so fascinating to so many people?
What's interesting is that 50% of the Red River Valley still claims some Scandinavian heritage today. That's why it's a big deal. I always tell visitors, are you from here? Do you know why we're in what sounds like a Scandinavian center? We're not a Scandinavian museum. We are a cultural heritage museum. And so we really celebrate all the different heritages, but that's why, because it is still a dominant culture in our Red River Valley.
Obviously, your organization manages several interesting things, but can you talk more about that Comstock House?
You bet.
House, you mentioned it just a minute ago.
The Minnesota Historical Society owns the Comstock House, and we are the site manager. So we're under contract with them. They give us a grant every year to do all of the programming, to pay somebody to look after the property. Emily Coulzer does a fabulous job. She was in there cleaning and doing some inventory work on the items, many of which are still original Comstock family items. And it's open now for tours, Memorial Day to Labor Day. We're open Fridays and Saturdays 10 to 4 and by appointment. So a lot of people love to come in. They're doing a tour of the state of Minnesota at all their historic sites, and they don't want to miss the Comstock House.
Sure. And what about Mark Peel? I think he's been making a valuable impact for years.
Mark is, we call him a community treasure. Certainly he gets called upon on almost a daily basis to answer questions about the historical context of current events by the media. He writes and researches the major exhibits. He was a major contributor to the Idaho Manipi exhibit and the Stories exhibit, and anything that has a local component, Mark is there. He also writes and researches and writes journal articles. He's interviewed frequently. He does up to 75 public programs a year. I mean, he's busy every minute, and he would say he loves coming to work every single day. Now, Mark and I are both planning to retire in 2025, and so we're going to make a nice, slow, gentle transition for both of those changes. So, but he'll be around for years to come.
Maureen, what's the best part of your job?
Oh, I would say the variety, the tremendous variety. You can have a plan on what you're going to do during the day, but that can be changed in an instant. So we have lots and lots of things that we're all doing all day long. So the variety is the biggest thing. And then I just love grant writing. I love making money from writing. So that's what I'm planning to do after I retire.
Well, obviously, we've got a lot of information here, but if people want to get more information, want to learn more, maybe before they come to your organization, where can they go? Who can they contact?
They definitely want to take a look at our website. hcscconline.org is the URL, hcscconline.org, and that gives you all of our programming, all of our upcoming exhibits, and we also have videos. We have our last two virtual Pangeas recorded there. We've got James Condell recordings. We've got videos, all kinds of things available, and of course our YouTube channel as well.
Mm-hmm. Maureen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Stay tuned, there's more to come. Aaron Tinjum and the Tangents started out as a folk rock project, but have since broadened their sound to include an American country feel. Here's a look at this group of hard-working musicians.
Subsides, it's the changing of the guard or the rising of the tide. It's
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Post this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. And by the members of Prairie Public.